Man, way back like a Maybach, on back like some flats on that Cadillac. I like that.
And I'm sure that
They
I
say
have
she
no
like
doubt the
niggas with
state
that
has no
dark black.
quarrels or qualms with that being dramatic. That's
She
dramatic.
wants
That's
to ride
horrible
with
to
me
see
because she
that.
know I got that
A
something to
stranger
say.
beating on your little brother. But we also heard that the whole time that was occurring, his aunt and his
I'm a
grandfather
steady stack. Why your
was
steady
fighting
drop?
to get him out of there. They were fighting to get Mr. Murphy, Rashad Murphy, out of that circumstance, he and his brother. And the Georgia authorities were skeptical about it because of what had occurred with the mother, and I think maybe his grandfather had some criminal history way back in the early part of his life, and it was affecting that decision. Meanwhile, he ends up, he and his brother do, with this woman, Miss Dallas, who his aunt told us was a wonderful foster mom. He couldn't have had a better foster mom, Miss Dallas. She cared for those boys, and when the state came to take them, her time with them was up. She fought to keep them from being transferred to another foster care, foster. She loved and cared and supported those boys. And his aunt came in here and told us. We may have heard that from someone else, I don't remember, but another family member may have told us about Miss Dallas. You remember the testimony? She would dress them up and bring them down here when their little sister was performing at church in Jacksonville. Drive all the way down from Georgia. She would bring them down there to Jacksonville for family get-togethers. And they thought the world of her. But after about 2 to 3 years, Mr. Murphy went back to his family, went back to that environment that he lived in, which was a loving, caring environment outside of his mother. It was a loving and caring environment that he had. His aunts told you that in their testimony. He had and maintained a loving relationship with his family and friends while he was incarcerated. He absolutely did. He has developed religious and spiritual awareness. Well, apparently he has. We saw some certificates where he's been doing that and trying to help out with Bible study. He loves his children, has been a good father to them. It sounds like he has. Sounds like Miss Steiger told us that. And I know his aunts told us that he loved his children, or does love his children. And again, another favorite uncle that talks about him being removed from his home, placed in foster care. The state will tell you that most likely that's the most powerful mitigation he probably has. He has no prior felony convictions. That's true. We stipulated to that. He has displayed appropriate behavior and the ability to follow rules while incarcerated. That's fine. If you want to find that to be mitigating, he's in a controlled environment. And then any other existence of any other factors. The PTSD diagnosis, the state would suggest is somewhat skeptical. The state is skeptical of that diagnosis and the evidence in this case. Dr. Collins testified to it and agreed. He, in fact, was looking for the collateral evidence that Dr. Werner examined in this case, police reports, interviews, and Dr. And that was her discussion about other defendants, not about Mr. Murphy's case, Rashad Murphy. He found evidence that he may suffer from PTSD. But as I pointed out to her in the cross-examination, this defendant not only participated in his conspiracy murder, he took all those steps I already walked through with you, all the things that he did to contribute to this, including trying to protect the conspiracy and trying to keep it hidden, which apparently is his forte, the ghost. Didn't appear until they got back to Jacksonville, was able to avoid the cameras. But his role in the next aggravator I'm going to talk to you about, not only in the heightened premeditation, which clearly he was part of that planning because he's telling them we have this plan in place that we're going to do, and he needs to stop talking before they figure this out, trying to protect it. His behavior in the actual murder itself, with that fully automatic pistol, that needs to be considered because he's firing that at a fully automatic cyclical rate. Mr. Gathright, standing to his right, fired a high-powered rifle at a high, rapid-fire rate. All of that percussion, all of those muzzle flashes, all of that violence not affecting him at all, not triggering any kind of a PTSD reaction at all. He coolly, calmly runs back to the Impala, almost like he's jogging, keeping his head turned towards the Charger as he flees. Gets back into the Impala, and they flee back to the Airbnb, and then he's posting Get Back Day. And lastly, Davion Murphy. So, Mr. Davion Murphy has suggested 13 mitigating circumstances. I'll try to move through these as fast as possible. The capacity of Davion Murphy to appreciate the criminality of his conduct or the lethal misconduct to the government's broad and substantial impaired. Absolutely not. That has been absolutely disappointing. Everything about this case tells you that he knew the criminality. He wouldn't be hiding his identity if he didn't know the criminality of his conduct. Everything about this shows planning. It shows advanced thought, purposeful action, him pursuing the Charger, remember, and firing the rounds at the west side of the hotel at the Charger. Nothing about this supports that, and Dr. Warner confirmed it with expert psychiatric opinion. He does not meet that. The felony was committed while he was under the influence of extreme mental or emotional disturbance. No, that was completely disproven. Dr. Warner told you, no. He doesn't suffer from any emotional disturbance or extreme mental disturbance. His age at the time of the offense, he was in his mid to late 20s. I think he was 26. He was in his late to mid 20s. He suffers from traumatic brain injury. I'm just going to echo the words of the last doctor you just heard testify, a Yale-educated, board-certified diagnostic radiologist who's been looking at MRIs for his entire career for decades. Absolutely not. No. There's no brain damage in Mr. Davion Murphy's brain. He was exposed to repeated violence in his childhood and young adult life. There's no evidence of that for Davion Murphy. None. His mother, Miss Beeks, a wonderful mother, described as a wonderful mother. When asked by Dr. Warner, the state's own expert, last Saturday, tell me about your childhood. I had a great childhood. I had a good mother. And we saw that in the record evidence that Dr. Eisenstein testified about, that was provided to him. It was told by Mr. Davion Murphy's attorneys. We saw it in the records. The things she did for her son, the things she tried to do, moving him to a different, getting him out of the 8th grade because he was having all of his conduct issues, which was the support for Dr. Warner's conduct disorder. This is precursor to antisocial personality disorder. Get him out of the public schools, put him into that Christian academy. Sure enough, what happens? He graduates from 8th grade. It helps. Later, he fails 11th grade, and he ends up in the Jacksonville Youth Academy, where he has to go to school, and he finishes 11th grade. And then what happens? His mother, who kicked him out of the house because she had exercised some tough love, which takes a lot of love. A lot of love. Any parent knows that. It takes a lot of love to kick your son out or kick your daughter out when they're doing something like that and not being accountable. He was skipping, smoking, gambling, getting in all kinds of trouble at school. She kicked him out of the house and he went to live with one of his grandmothers. But in 12th grade, after he graduates or gets through 11th grade, she goes and petitions the high school there in Jacksonville and gets him back into school, and he finishes his 12th grade year. Let's graduate with his class. He later gets his special diploma for high school. There was no violence in his childhood. This is a young man who learned how to work. He learned how to work a 9-to-5 job. We saw that in the evidence. All the jobs he held for months and months and months. In fact, he taught his younger brother, who was transported down here from prison to testify for his older brother. I told you, he taught me how to work a 9-to-5 job. He taught me how to be responsible. And what else did that young man tell you about his older brother? That Davion, at 8th grade, 13, 14 years old, his mother had him in the hospital. That's when he speaks at the hospital. This defendant takes over. He takes over the household. He takes over the chores, making sure the other siblings do the chores, keep the house up to the standards that are Miss Peak standards. He cooks for his siblings. This defendant, just like the other defendants, had a loving environment around him of caring mothers, caring people. Other than Rashad Murphy's mother, I wouldn't put her into that class, apparently. He's not in the borderline range of intellectual disability. He's in the low average range, but not in a range that disables him or keeps him from being able to work or keeps him from being able to recognize the fact that he needs to avoid or keeps him from understanding that when you're committed to this world, in order to keep the commitment of what you're there to keep long, conceal himself and hide behind the cause and take up a position. Because you remember, he was the backup singer in this performance. He was the backup shooter to prevent flight as a hedge against the victim escaping. And he sure fulfilled that, didn't he? He came out of the shadows with the giant fireballs coming out of that 300 Dracula. And it didn't prevent him from understanding that he needed to hide his identity. He needed to wear dark clothes to stay camouflaged in the darkness of that night, and he needed to hide his identity from his secrets. He didn't really probably need Dr. Davion Murphy grew up in a household of instability and financial strain. I don't know about the instability. There probably was financial strain. I think that the young man yesterday from the prison told us he was being questioned. It's not like we were living in some mansions. So yeah, he was carrying on. His father was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Well, his father really wasn't in his life. His father was the person for a long time. His uncle came to testify. His father was incarcerated for life and his 12 years old. Now, was that anything? I'm sure that would have some effect on him when he was going with his father. So let's talk about that this he's loved by his family, no doubt about that. Consistency in front of others. I want to get back before I mention those folks, unlike the guilt phase of this trial, I'm not going to have a rebuttal argument. The way this works, since we are seeing lives are on the line, but I want to talk about what Rashad Murphy did. Something that was it's on purpose. Rashad is successful. So, he went into New Jersey, his high school. He did that opportunity to go up and she said, Nico, if you all want to talk about videos and highlights, try to do kids and scholarships. That's what these people did. That's how long you consider it's mitigated by it's also a loaf factors. That all of these defendants have people in their lives that love them, cared about them, so that they never went Mr. Both the Murphys, Mr. Gathright, Mr. Chance. Mr. Gathright, Mr. Chance, both of them ever to live up to God Murphy and the citizens. So I'm going to talk to you about the way aggravated circumstances. These three defendants, the three generals, created this process. Through this with you one more time. This and Mr. Gathright saw all problems, from the evidence I put together was full. All of them, there was criminal career. And the moment all part of it, because that without absolutely being consistent. Second, that is Mr. Gathright showing fire. As far as he knows from his position in Booth 18, there are many people, at least three in that car. Tifa McCray and Miss Aldred and Miss Kidney Indian and then stopped in that car in both of these cars. He knows G was in that charger. People being fired. Vision of great risk to many people. Yeah, absolutely. Look at the next one. So that's people. charger. Watch his firing the cars. Charger starts to move, you see its headlights. It's still firing. Here comes the Charger. That's firing. These cars, it's firing towards that. It's right at continues to fire. It's firing there. Its fire is going northwest. Here from Ocala, he's not snapping. There's no cause for concern. He's opening up 35 cents. Through that air conditioning unit, through that brick wall, just across that room, and struck Pedro Mazur's wife in the ankle, stinging her. She didn't know what it was. And then it was his little boy next morning who found him. Mr. Gathright was fired indiscriminately all over this desk. That parking and see all those cars. This is a hotel complex. You saw the big signs outside. There's no mistake. And that's in addition to all the rounds that he and Rashad Murphy pumped into these cars towards these party goers and friends. And now we get to Mr. David. Incidentally, it's not going to be reflected on this, but he comes out of the shadows by that yellow Bronco on one side and Mercedes SUV on the other. He's firing into the Dodge Charger. He's also firing directly in towards the hotel. Sean Gathright was directing fire into that hotel, and we saw that they were shadow from the entrance of the hotel. There could have been anybody in that hotel behind those windows. That's just in front of him. What he's doing here, what he's doing there. He is firing. He's firing directly up left on that image of that hotel. Straight up there. Pushing those rounds. With that firearm that he has no stock on, right? Stop him. The thing that they're on the lying on that side of the hotel, kicking her hydro flies through the window and cuts across the room. Your boyfriend grabbed it. That didn't stop him at all. The fact that this was a packed hotel. He's firing indiscriminately down the edge of that. So, one thing you can be assured of is that your guilt was should be found. That's our that's our when it's clear that way that Mr. Murphy is holding on. Because it used his left hand to grasp it. There's a reason. It's out of necessity. And of course, Mr. Harris is shy, and obviously zero remorse over what he did. He's wrong in this case because he's really an yes. That aggravating factor alone, placing many people at great risk, and no placing many people at great risk. Yeah, think about it. Think about how heinous that is. How heinous that is. Like you're going to treat all the people in that hotel, all the party goers, just fodder. They're just fodder for these killers because they're going to kill Charlie Jones. And that's why they brought that over. Not only firepower, and they were going to lay anyone that got away, didn't hesitate, that zero reservations of the evidence fell down. And that is an aggravating factor. That is an aggravating factor. You couple that with these three defendants, the Murphys and Mr. Gathright, with the other aggravating factors in this case, calculated, premeditated fashion was committed. There is absolutely no contest between the state's aggravating factors and its mitigating factors that have been presented to you. None. The law on weighing aggravators versus mitigation. First, you decide your value. It's about significance in light of this case. Applies themselves. Significance is aggravation. The aggravation always involves it's a statement suggesting that every aggravating factor is a powerful factor as it relates specifically to this case and these defendants' individual actions. You have to do the same with mitigation. You have to go through and determine number one, is it proven? Number two, what weight does it have to be in my decision making in this case? Does it have significant weight? Does it have great weight? And then ultimately it's up to you to decide. And it's not a numbers game. It's not a numbers game. It's a quality game. It's the quality of the aggravation. Now, that was silence as far as aggravation. Because it wasn't a job to make decisions. Check on life as you go. If it does outweigh the mitigation, then you can sentence them to death. You remember that all the way back in the original selection. And it's the state's suggestion to you, each of you individually, that aggravating factors in this case talked a lot about rehabilitation. I talked a lot about all the individual steps. I've discussed with you all of the problem solving. I want you to consider how cold-blooded the conspiracy that lasts for weeks is. How cold-blooded that is. Look at the accuracy and the efficiency with which Sean Gathright operated in this work, with which Davion Murphy operated. No hesitation at all for anything that Mr. Davion Murphy did. From the time he came out of that car all masked up, had his mask on, had his disguise on, keeping himself hidden away in the shadows until the appropriate time when he came out, started unleashing those fireballs of gunfire. And then to turn and pursue that tenaciousness and purposefulness, and then to immediately turn after fire and go back immediately to flee and to get away. All of this, all of those defendants, Sean Murphy too, doesn't just suggest that they all had wastewater programs. It suggests that they all lack of any kind of emotion. It was just simple business. From loading that Impala to the way which is going this way down, it was all business. They acted as a team effort. You know, this kind of premeditation, you see that this is that's what this is, and the kind of problem solving. You could talk about this whole life. We already saw the social media posts from Mr. Chance and Mr. Murphy. Don't forget about this. This was right around noon. Chance comes out of that. That's celebrating. You don't tell me about something that's the next door neighbors. He comes out with that drink in his hand, and then he's posting this. He's putting out posts that he's doing. That's like a 11 o'clock. So right around 2 o'clock UTC, right before they left, he's drinking, he's celebrating, putting up posts online. And then we go back, just to touch upon this one more time, the conversation, the conspiratorial conversation that's occurred weeks before this between Sean Murphy and Sean Gathright, the 18. We gotta stop Chance from giving us away, from revealing what we're doing. Get on there and stop it. And they agree to do it. We talked about the business-like attitude of Mr. Gathright and Mr. Chance. We've looked at that video, so folks, back in my opening statement, I told you that during this trial, reach out. Drag that conspiracy and reveal it in the lights of this court, right? Lights of truth. And that's what's happening now in this case. That's what the evidence in this case showed. But it was more than that. When I talked to you earlier about piling on evidence, there must have come a time. There must have come a time. The last week in the United States case, you all must have been this is coming in. You've heard enough. This is well in. What is it? This is everything. Just so long as dragging that conspiracy in, it was like a dump truck coming in. And it really, when it ended up being here, we were in guilt-faced closing statements. It was like we were all floating around in this ocean, literally an ocean. That's how much evidence there is in this case. And just like those fireballs coming out of that 300 blackout, and that building right there by the Swiss, Avion Northeast building, that were so bright, even in that ambient light of that moment. Just like that, this evidence shines brightly. It can't be avoided. It can't be hidden from. No hoodie, no COVID mask. That's for this aggravation. Or the skin to risk anyone sentence in this case. There is a mountain of evidence moving these aggravating factors. I point that out to you because sentences for each one of these defendants. It gives you assurance. It gives each of you knowledge. Deep down, the sentence is based upon not just about sentences, not just about it's based on that sense of giant of evidence, premeditation, evidence of creating great risk to many people, and the gang membership that lies at the heart of this case. All of these aggravators, there are reams and heaps of evidence that prove it. None of you should walk out of here after you enter your senses and your votes. None of you should have any qualms or doubts about doing so. But you go home and you know that your vote, the sentences defense that you have, those stands on that evidence and actions. You can have that assurance that night. You can be assured of the correctness and the justice of that sentence of death the next day, through the weekend, the next week, into next month. For the rest of your lives, you can know that your sentences in this case are just and right sentences. From the 19th century, Stevenson, those wonderful books, Treasure Island, Mystique, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, stories that we've all heard of lives. He was a great writer, he was a poet, he was a national hero in Scotland, and still revered here today. But he's also known for this invention. Sits down. Each of these state of Florida, states of Florida,